Pop Talk and Aliens, the William Clear podcast.
There she is again, right as rain. As always, I am William Clear. This is Pop Talk and Aliens, and it is podcast. And in this episode, we are going to be joined by someone who is in the UFO community. And when I say in the UFO community, I mean in the UFO community, not me. I tell the stories. I sit back and, make them fun, give you something to think about, hopefully, give you some entertainment, and raise awareness of the possibility of UFOs, extraterrestrial life, and non-man-made things floating around up there. But we're going to be talking to UFOJane from TexasUFOSightings.com and the Weird UFO Show. And she's actually in there doing the work. And it's an awesome conversation. I learned a ton. And I think you will too. And let me remind you just before we get started, the Pop Talk and Aliens is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free trial of an audiobook and listen to it for 30 days by going to the special link, which is audibletrial.com/poptalkandaliens. Audible has well over 100,000 titles to choose from. They have originals that you can listen to now. And it works on your tablet, on your phone, your iPhone, your Android, your computer. Basically anything that connects to the internet and can make sound probably plays Audible. So check it out. 30 days, free, on the house. Get an audiobook. Pop Talk and Aliens, audibletrial.com/Pop Talk and Aliens. You can find us on Instagram at Pop Talk and Aliens, on Facebook, facebook.com/Pop Talk Aliens. And of course, here on YouTube, if you're watching here, hit subscribe, hit like, do all those nice things for us, please. And if you're listening on iTunes or iHeart or Spotify or whatever it is, please subscribe to us also. It'd be nice of you and good for me and good for us. All right. So let's not waste any more time, right? Well, let's waste a little more time. Fine. Hi, Jane. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you run TexasUFOSightings.com and the Weird UFO Show, which is an awesome site. Everyone should check that out. And you post content regularly. And one of the things, if I can just dive right in, that I have to ask you about because it's, the talk of the UFO community as of late. So the Navy just confirmed, like days ago, right, that the UFO video that we've seen a billion times is, in fact, it's real. Why? I have, for the life of me, can't figure out, what exactly are they admitting at this point? Because didn't they already say a few months ago that if they had more, and if they released that, then it would cause grave danger, right?
Yeah, literally the word grave, they used the word grave danger. It would cause grave or danger to national security if they were to release further videos. Yeah, it's bizarre if you are into ufology and you follow these stories, because in December 2017, these videos were already released.
Right.
And we found out that the Pentagon had been investigating UFOs secretly, and we were introduced to these Navy pilot sightings. Pretty amazing. So this has already come out a few years ago now, and now we're being faced with the same videos again and being told, yes, these are real. So from somebody like you and me who's been following this story, it's a little bizarre. It's like, well, we already knew this. This is nothing new. But for somebody outside of the UFO circle, it's possible that this story came out to satisfy them, because there were a bunch of rumors and hearsay, after that December 2017 wave of media, maybe confusion about what these videos were, uncertainty about what they meant, where they came from. There was also debate even within the UFO community about, were these really official Department of Defense, or were the people involved in the release of this, did they really have secret intelligence? So there was some debate, but not much. So yeah, it is a little weird.
I do. I mean, I remember Tom DeLonge being on I think Joe Rogan before they came out, right? And he was talking about how they had this secret stuff and he wouldn't say what it was. And I remember at the time thinking, I don't know, man, sounds a little vague. And then later, like we see this stuff and like he was, involved in it. It was crazy. And then Luis Elizondo came out and he was like, yes, absolutely. We have the highest trained pilots that have seen these things and they can't explain them. And he went to the brink of saying that they could possibly be from another world.
Yeah, said not man-made. So that, that was stated by multiple people, not necessarily saying these are aliens, but these are not known man-made objects. So,
right.
Math, right? Yeah.
And then, and now they say it, and I never thought of what you just said. That's really interesting that it could be just to satisfy the public in general, just to say, yes, these were real. These have been floating around. You've heard about them. Yes.
Joke. It was
right. It wasn't a joke. But we're still not going to kick down the extra grave danger stuff, though. You're going to hold on to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like there's more video. Well, it's interesting. It's, hey, we're going to give you some videos, have you guys think about it for a little bit. Then we're going to say there's actually more videos than this that we can't share with you. And then we're just going to let you know, remind you again, guys, hey, we have these videos. Just so you know, they are real, but we can't tell you anymore. So it's just like this constant reminder. And I mean, I remember the December 2017 being a very big deal in our worlds, I guess, and everybody being very well aware. And I know friends and family read that news story and it became a talking point for a little while, but it kind of fizzled out. Mm-hmm. So among the general public. So that definitely could be a reason to talk about it again. We have seen this phenomenon before. So outside UFO phenomenon, we're just talking about media phenomenons with water on Mars. So there are so many news stories about water being on Mars and, in the past, in the present, all these kinds of things. So many stories about different planets that might have alien life. And then we hear a signal and then there's nothing else reported. And then we hear about a new planet that maybe has alien life and some hints, and then it moves on. So we've definitely seen this before where we see similar news stories over and over again. But I feel like this is the most obvious.
Yeah. By far the most video proof that you could, mm-hmm. that you could possibly have. And you're right. They do like Oumuamua, that thing when it floated by, it was like a big deal. Mm-hmm. And then, whatever.
Like what? Was it just stop being a big deal? It's like just not a spaceship anymore.
Well, that's what happens, I feel like, right? Is that all the speculation comes out in the beginning, it'll be all on the news and people will be, oh my God, this thing, and it came from another galaxy, and it and then it's like, yeah, it's not an alien. I always feel like enough people will say it was not an alien, it was not from another world, there's no intelligence involved with it, until people say, all right, well, then just forget about it.
Right.
It's the whole, like, until you bring me an alien body.
I'm tired of it now. Mm-hmm.
I talk about that on my show all the time.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of hearing that.
It's so true.
I feel like it's gotten to the point where an alien body wouldn't even do it at this point.
Especially with like how, like the deep fakes and CGI and how incredible it is. I mean, it would be so easy if you wanted to just say something was fake. That's going to be a lot more believable if you were to see a video of an alien, which you could gather has happened before. There are different videos and photos of aliens over the years. If you were studying this way back in the day, you probably saw more of those photos and videos that you would actually see today. And the debunkings of some of those are debatable. So it's very possible that we've seen photos and videos, and that's exactly what happened. A story came out discrediting it. That's a lot easier to believe. Mm-hmm. Kind of goes away.
It's always easier to believe those.
Mhm.
And that brings up another interesting point, I think, is that, and I think you had a live stream recently with Jeremy Corbell, and Dave Foley was on it, and it was awesome. And I know I think at some point you brought up the fact that, people always say, well, if there's so many cameras now and everybody has them, then how come we don't see more of this
Right.
than we used to? And I feel like we do. I mean, your site, Texas UFO Sightings, alone, to
Mhm.
me, is proof that there's more video and recorded images of this stuff than there was in the 60s when,
Right.
there's all these UFO photos in the 50s. Well, not really. There's
Yeah.
many more now.
Yeah. Thank you I appreciate that you feel that way for sure. Cause that's definitely the whole point of Texas UFO sightings is, well, CNN's not going to report on this.
Mhm.
We'll report on it. And it doesn't mean that every case is an alien, but the idea is just to get the information out there so that if other people saw it too, or if they have theories, it's out there, it can be documented. And I think what it is maybe when people are looking for evidence of aliens, they are looking for this stereotypical green alien to like walk out of a stereotypical spaceship in front of them or something. And if we really are clever about this and we imagine these aliens to be more advanced, well, maybe there were more contacts with them in the past. And maybe they are better at staying discreet. So I don't know why we would expect us to just find them so easily.
Right.
If they are more advanced and coming from other planets and trying to be on the DL. So it's possible too that the types of encounters and craft from the past where we maybe did hear more encounters of aliens actually are happening less. I will say encounters with aliens that I do often document, and I haven't personally had an encounter, so I just have to be a judge as a reporter. They seem to happen like in a dreamlike state. Things like your typical abduction experience, like
Right.
with missing time. You recall it later in a dream or hypnosis, and it's almost as if these experiences are induced, which doesn't mean that they are not real, but it's possible that encounters these days happen almost virtually or remotely, like we here are on Zoom, whereas in the past maybe there were more physical encounters when we didn't have iPhones and all of that.
Right. I've never thought of that. That's an amazing idea. I'm gonna have to let that roll around.
It's really, and I don't know if I would have ever come up with that thought outside of document. It's just because of the nature of those types of reports. Where they are so believable and so consistent. So I really don't want to write it off as fantasy or hallucination, but there is that lack of physical trace of evidence. Whereas with, a physical sighting of a craft, there's a video, like the Navy sightings, for example.
Right. I'm glad you said that you hadn't had an encounter. That was going to be one of my questions. Was that if that had ever happened? How did your passion for this start? I've never had one either. I have never been lucky enough to. One time I did actually. I'll tell you this real quick because it actually speaks to what we were just talking about. I was driving in. I live up near Sacramento, and I was driving in Gold Country, which is like nothing, right? There's no city lights in the complete. You see a billion stars. And there was this freaking rocket thing that was floating up into space, like dispersing clouds. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And I didn't think, and me obsessed with aliens, I didn't think to pull out my phone. I was so just like hypnotized by it that I didn't stop and go, I better get my phone and take a picture of this. And a ton of people did, and it ended up being some missile test or SpaceX rocket or something like that.
You saw that though.
It was really cool. I was really hoping. Like, please be an alien ship. This would be so awesome.
That's pretty cool though but at least you know that you really did see something weird. It was something out of the ordinary. You were right to know that it was something strange. Even if it was explained later, it wasn't anything typical. Like
Right.
anything Elon Musk is putting out there is not typical. And that's causing a lot of UFO sightings. The Starlink satellites, too, that Elon Musk has been putting up there, it's causing a lot of sightings, and it's quite incredible. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that. I haven't seen them, but a lot of people have. Long line of lights.
Yeah, I haven't seen one, but I've read and
looks
seen
like something out of Star Wars.
Right. Yeah, I've seen people like talk about them and think that they were UFOs. I guess it's kind of like also like in the 50s when we started having bombers and all the weird stuff, and people kept thinking that those were UFOs. And apparently the CIA was like cool with that because they thought if people thought they were UFOs, then they wouldn't know that they were. I never really understood that whole thing.
They wouldn't know the foreign intelligence, or
right.
It would be a dead end.
Yeah.
Rather than leading to something. Yeah, that's interesting. But it is the Starlink satellites. I think we don't want to assume every time somebody sees something funky up there that it's their own satellites, right? Because how weird would that get if we're just every time somebody sees something, oh, that's a drone, that's one of Elon Musk's satellite, we'll just start having, as our craft gets more advanced, they really could potentially blend in, to other craft. So even though people will report Starlink satellites, what I guess to be, I really do try to do as much investigation as I can to really determine if that could be the case. Because if there was a really big, because what I figured out is if there was a really big, legitimate UFO waiver sighting that happened to coincide with the night of Starlink, it would be really, really difficult to parse that out in the media and get the story straight. And I have seen some evidence of that, where you have a lot of people seeing the Starlinks one night, and then you have these other cases that end up in the mix that are not. And they unfortunately will get debunked or lost. And so it's a very weird thing with our own craft getting more advanced in satellites and things like that. It's making it really mucky.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes it easier and easier to debunk, because now we don't even have to rely on always saying it's a weather balloon every single time. We can just say, there's like 30 things that it could be now.
First drone.
Right.
First drone that they just bought on Amazon last week.
Exactly. Yeah. Drones have been a great debunking tool.
They really have.
And now with Elon Musk doing this stuff, it's hard to tell. It's like if you don't get something as jaw-dropping as the Navy videos or Oumuamua or some crazy thing, then it's like it's so much easier to just say, but look, there's a million things going on up there, and there's new stuff every day, and we're gonna have Space Force up there, and God knows what they're gonna do, and there's satellites chasing our satellites.
I don't know if you saw the news with Tom Cruise, and speaking of Elon Musk, they're going to shoot a movie in space.
Yeah.
You might be seeing Tom Cruise like in the, look, it's Superman, it's Tom Cruise.
another thing to debunk.
An alien.
It's not an alien, it's Tom Cruise. No, it's just Tom
Pretty
Cruise.
close.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Kind of an alien, but
Yeah, so it definitely, which of course, for the conspiracy theorists out there who believe that the existence of aliens visiting, are real and aliens are visiting, and this has been something that's been covered up, it's awfully convenient that we have all this activity in the sky that we can literally point to.
Yeah, it's a treasure trove for them. Yeah. Which is, I was going to ask you about going back to the Navy thing. You've talked a lot about disclosure on your site and like in your posts and stuff. Do you think, because there's two sides of it, right? There's like, you can kind of debunk everything and just say that it's SpaceX or that it's Starlink or it's whatever. But then on the other hand, like there's the Navy stuff, and then they even admit that there's terrifying tape or whatever they have left that they're not showing us. Do you think that that's inching towards some sort of disclosure? I mean, I know we've been talking about that since, at least since I ever started thinking about UFOs, it was always like, oh, this is disclosure. This is it's incremental disclosure, and it's going to come out one day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that question is still worth being asked now.
Oh,
Do you think that that's a possibility?
I think it'll be really cool, or I don't know, cool. Hopefully it'll be cool when we stop asking that question, right? That's when we'll know it.
Right.
We stop asking that question. But I will find that I used to ask that question and people say, no, I don't think disclosure's happening, or whatever, maybe. Now almost every time it's like, I think disclosure already happened. So or it's happening. So, I mean, I don't know what your opinion is. I'm not going to put words into your mouth at all. But even it seems like skeptics or folks who haven't really followed this for a while or on the outside feel like something's coming. Like there's going to be more awareness of our place in this galaxy, whatever that means, whatever. I don't know that I know exactly what disclosure will look like, but yes, I do. And I do believe it's coming and will happen soon. I had an interview, it'll be posted on YouTube soon, with a man named Stephen Bassett.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's been one of those people that's been instrumental in disclosure, in going to like actual Congress people and politicians with evidence to try to get this into different conversations, and had some success. And so he defines disclosure as when a head of state, somebody like President Trump, or really any president, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any head of state comes forward and says, yes, I don't know if Stephen Bassett said aliens, but yes, they are here and they are visiting. So it's a final when a ruler, a leader says it.
Yeah.
And I do believe something like that is going to happen in the near term. And don't worry, I won't chase away any viewers. I try not to be political, but in just the pure definition of disclosure, Trump has made 2 statements now about UFOs as a sitting president in office that weren't jokes, that were serious.
Right.
It's never happened before.
Yeah.
Never.
It's always been jokes.
Always been jokes.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, whatever you make of it, I have no judgment on audience and however they make of it is good or bad. That's a totally separate conversation. But that's definitely historical. And that definitely indicates something. In 2016, to compare Hillary Clinton, that was part of her campaign, with UFOs and aliens. And she spoke about it and was going to get to the bottom of it. So that was part of her campaign to not win the election. Now Trump's talking about it. Maybe not in the same way she would have. But I don't think that's on accident. We have space movie coming out. We've got Elon Musk shooting all kinds of things up there.
Mm-hmm.
Civilians that might be up there in space might start seeing things that are weird. So I think it's inevitable that there will have to be some kind of education, some kind of awareness about this coming out within the next few years.
I agree. And I also agree with you that I think a lot of it has happened. I think, it's just, it drips out and it drips out. And it's like, especially with the Navy UFOs. And I mean, and again, whatever your politics are, listeners, watchers, whatever, Fox News talking about UFOs like 10 times.
Yeah, that's weird.
You can think whatever you want about that network one way or the other, but like that's a massive cable network that like people vote because of things they see and hear on that channel. And they're doing like long form segments on UFOs.
Serious segments. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's never. I remember. Do you remember the when there was that fake sighting of? I think 2 guys used like cameras, and it was above Jerusalem, and they had this light go up and then come down. You remember that?
I have my own theories about Jerusalem UFO. I do. I remember it very well. That's actually one of the reasons I got into this.
Oh, really?
That was
okay. Got to tell me about that.
2011.
Right.
2011 was a crazy year. It wasn't just Jerusalem UFO, which we can talk about whether it's fake or not in a second. It's totally up for debate. That was also the year the Japan tsunami, earthquake, tragedy, disaster.
Mm-hmm.
in 2011, before, during, and after that horrible, Fukushima and everything, there were strange orbs that were captured on all kinds of different video cameras at the time. And these are not your typical flying saucers like you have in your background, or even like the triangle UFOs, which I commonly report on my site, and some other your typical craft. These are more of the variety of circular orbs that are almost like organic looking, maybe intelligent. It's hard to tell. An interesting phenomenon, I think, could be, I don't know, it could be linked to ball lightning. It could or could not be linked to intelligent species. I don't know. So that happened in 2011. That was absolutely fascinating to me. I went on a whole journey of watching volcano cams and had my own kind of real-time sightings on webcam. It was amazing. And learned a lot about with South America, they call them spirit orbs, but this is the phenomenon: earthquakes, storms, volcanoes. It's really interesting. So that was 2011. That was really big. And then also, though, in 2011 was the Jerusalem UFO, which I want to say it was either January 2011 or maybe January 2012. I don't know, but I want to say it was that time frame.
Yeah.
The first,
I think it might have been 2012, just because people freaked out about it a lot.
It's like January.
But yeah,
it might have been like the very beginning. So the very first few videos that were posted, I don't think have ever been debunked. But what happened is, immediately after that, additional videos got posted. One was a completely false. It was literally just a picture with like a laser pointer. I
remember that, yeah.
That's the one that was on any mainstream news site. And then there was also another long, like, movie cut version that got posted. And those are the videos that lived on every mainstream news site. The very original, like, 2 videos, just 2, got buried almost immediately.
That's so interesting.
And the obviously fake videos were what were used to debunk the 2 first ones.
That's so interesting, because I believe that. I fell for that, Jane. I fell for those 2 guys faking it.
I was on the forum. So the only reason that I know this is because I was doing a UFO site and I was documenting, and it was a real-time thing that was happening, and I was on the forums, and I was literally watching forum threads disappear in 404. Disappear in front of my eyes.
Really?
And then I won't say, but there was a site that had linked to it, okay? I won't say the forum name. But just how we were all reporting on that sighting, right? So there was one random site that reported on it. This forum, I won't say what forum it was, said that the Jerusalem UFO was a hoax because of this guy who had reported on it, because he was a hoaxer. He was just like everybody. Right? So like, let's pick your popular hoax UFO channel on YouTube. There's some out there, right? Or they just post hoaxes. Pick them, right? Now pick a legit UFO sighting, say the Navy videos. That's like saying, okay, hoax channel, we'll call it hoax UFO video, youtube.com/hoax UFO videos. If they were to post the Navy sightings, that would be like saying, oh, the Navy sightings are fake.
Right.
Because it's hoax channel. So that is what happened 100% with the Jerusalem UFO. Now, I don't live in Jerusalem, didn't have Jerusalem contacts. I cannot at all authenticate the original 2 videos. I don't know if they were real, but I know that that's absolutely what happened. That people were reporting on and focused on the subsequent videos that were obviously fake and were completely distracted from the first 2 or 3 that were absolutely showed this. Or for those who, sorry, we didn't even explain for some audience members, but I think probably a lot of people watched it. Or just hovering over the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem and then taking off at absolutely impossible speed.
Incredible speed.
Yeah, and there were 2 or 3 videos that initially were taken of that from different angles that, to my knowledge, were never debunked. And then once that got out, then there were quickly these other obviously fake videos that were posted, and it just, that story, I guess, will always be a mystery.
That's incredible. That's why I'm so glad you came.
Oh, I'm
because,
glad I got to share that with you.
well, because I did a show about UFO hoaxes like a few years ago, and some of them were like legitimate hoaxes, and I was talking about how you could put together the perfect UFO hoax and just this whole like shtick about that. But one of the things I was talking about was those, because I legit believed the story of, oh, it was just these two guys and they both took separate things and they were the fake ones. But I remember initially when it hit that it was on either Fox or CNN or something. And I remember this news anchor kind of freaking out about it. I remember her saying, like, this is weirding me out.
Yeah,
I don't like this.
There was no debunking of the first two videos. What happened, the third or fourth video, I don't remember if there was 2 or 3 initially, at least 2. The first fake thing that was posted was literally somebody took a picture of the scene and literally did a laser pointer. Why are you going to do that? You just did all this fancy CGI, incredible CGI. Now you're going to take credit away. You just succeeded. Now you're going to post a video of just a picture, and it made no sense. The only reason you're going to post a fake, an obvious fake, and take away from your own amazing work, like that just makes no sense.
And it was the same.
And then there was another one that was posted after that, because I think people still were finding. And then there was another one that was a longer cut, like hot production movie. It was weird, and maybe that was real too. I don't know, but I just assumed that was not real, considering the timing. And honestly, I don't know if you could find any of these videos as they were originally posted today. Because I don't even think I did a video on my channel. You'd have to find people who were like taking screenshots and making videos at the time, because it's been so buried. And again, like, I don't know. I mean, I haven't searched, but I'm guessing if you go and you search Jerusalem UFO, those debunkings, they're going to refer to the last batch of videos and not the original.
Right. I didn't know. Oh my God.
Which is original is the only one that matters.
Of course. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's going to give me I can do another show on that.
That doesn't mean it was aliens. It doesn't mean it wasn't fake, but there was definitely something completely funky about the reporting on that. And that's not uncommon. So you'll see that with now, I mean, we know, for example, Phoenix Lights, the mayor came on and laughed and made a joke about it. He came out later, admitted to that. The Rendlesham UFO, you can still, it might be down now. One day they're going to take it down. But I have a screenshot on my site. You can still find an article talking about how that's a hoax on the BBC. It's an old article.
Oh, yeah.
We know it wasn't a hoax, but we know it wasn't a hoax. Like, there's different theories, but we know that, it wasn't a joke.
The lighthouse.
Right. So Roswell is the best example. Weather balloon. We know it wasn't a weather balloon. So this is just this is not surprising. This is what happens when there's an interesting UFO sighting that is compelling, that news reporters are going to report. There's probably, and if it's going to live on, there's probably going to be an explanation. It's not going to be aliens.
Roswell is always my sort of go-to, because it's the classic, but it's also the one that has the most substantial evidence of the government continually adjusting its story to refute what people are saying. Like, well, no, there was this. Oh, that's crash test dummies. I forgot about that. We totally forgot the crash test dummies. Okay, not really a weather balloon. Kind of. Okay, radar balloon, radar detecting balloon. And then, then they write this book 50 years later, case closed. I'll never forget that freaking book. And I always use that one as an example of right in front of you. There's no, there's no the cover up is right in front of your eyes. The government cover up of that sighting, of that event, is clear. It's obvious. It's admitted to by them. It's like, we couldn't tell you it was a weather balloon. So to think, well, these things don't happen really. It's too complicated. There'd be too many people that have to be involved.
That's
No.
a big myth. How could this be kept a secret? That I find that is there's a lot of myths in the UFO. You know what we talked about. Well, why isn't there the photo and video of the bodies? You know, that's a good one. Well, there have been. That's always my answer. It's just the news tells you it's fake, and you're like, okay, it's fake. So there's that. But there's also so this expectation that so ways that people debunk it. So there's an expectation that if something did happen, of course the news media is going to report on it and you're going to hear about it, right? So
Right.
if didn't happen, no pictures, but or pictures it didn't happen, right, is what people say. Let's say where do you work? Let's say you work at a grocery store, or you work at a tech company, or whatever, or a veterinarian clinic. You have meetings, right, with your boss or your coworkers, and you plan for your future. And what you're doing is you're secretly planning. You're secretly planning all the strategies, all the marketing that you're going to do. I have a marketing background, so I'm definitely coming from that place of boardroom meetings, right? Mm-hmm. Where you plan 5 to 10 years ahead, and you don't want your competitors to know what you're doing. And I mean, this is just what humans do. You do it in your own families, you do it with friends, you keep secrets from each other. You ally, you conspire, you decide who should know what, and this is just how things are done as humans. And of course, it takes another level when national security comes into play. My point being, it's very easy, really, to keep a secret, in the sense that secrets, I don't know that are ever really kept. They do come out almost always, right?
Yeah.
The random rumors you hear, the intuitions you have. But it's easy to keep people believing what you want them to believe. I don't think it's that the secrets never come out, that the evidence never comes out, or that the government's always right and never messing up. Obviously, we have the Phoenix Lights, we have the Rendlesham UFO, I'm going to go on and on.
Yeah, no, I think
things that maybe we weren't supposed to see.
One of the things I talk about when I do like those stories on the show is that they constantly will fuck up these things, but all you need is enough, another person just kind of say, well, no, that's not, that guy was wrong when he said that, and now 3 of us are going to say this, so that's what the truth is. And Rendlesham, I think, also is another one of those that like we were talking about earlier, the ones that kind of just are a big deal and then they just kind of float away. I don't feel I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. I don't feel like that one ever really, I know that they came up with reasons, or it was a lighthouse and it was this and that, but to me, that's one of the more interesting ones that kind of always get swept under, because I don't feel like they really ever came out with there's no weather balloon for that one.
No, I mean, there are hieroglyphs.
Right. Yeah. There's nuclear, there was radiation.
Yeah. There's so many, and this happens a lot with really great cases, not just Rendlesham. If you really do your due diligence as a researcher, you'll find all these details about the case that are the case. Right. That make this the case. I think, and I'm actually having some trouble remembering, but I want to say there was almost like a download that the colonel experienced when he saw the hieroglyphs, right?
Yeah, the ones and zeros and stuff that he couldn't
right
stop.
And he almost felt like he had a down, that is it, everything. How could there not be a more interesting detail than that?
Yeah.
But if you read the BBC about it, but you'll never come across that. Yes, it's all these omitted details, all these omitted facts, that you find just get lost as the case is reported on, and then you just get more of these other opinions or possible alternatives, and the details that would debunk that explanation just get lost, and a new person discovering that case never learns about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it becomes simplified, more and more simplified as the years go by. I always use JFK as an example of that, to the point now where, I have a 15-year-old son, and his ideas of what happened to JFK all of what we have learned and read
Wow,
and seen about it
crazy.
is it's gone. It's not in there
Yeah,
anymore. Jack Ruby's like not even a player in that
isn't that
anymore.
incredible?
And
And
it's
if
the
you were,
same with these things.
and you could never have talked about that like back then openly or like, yeah. And my son's 8, so it'll be interesting as he learns more about that history. What he learned, that will be really, really fascinating to watch.
It's
And of course,
really
JFK.
interesting.
Do you have opinions about JFK and UFOs? I know there's that famous, but possibly leaked document that proves that he was inquiring about files shortly before his assassination, but it was never, as I understand, fully authenticated. So,
Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't know a ton about it. I've never like gotten into it. Um,
I've
because I
looked
feel
at
like there was so
it.
many things that he was poking around in that they didn't like.
Yeah. There's a
Um,
file where they and again, it could be a forged document, but where they refer to JFK by his nickname Lancer as being too interested in UFOs.
really?
And that if that's one that's not an FOIA, like you can't find it on a .gov website.
Yeah.
So, but it would be absolutely, it would add a whole other layer to that crazy mystery. Yeah.
Oh, and why not add another layer to
Yeah,
that?
right.
Let's
Well,
just pile it on.
isn't this the layer though, right? So think about all the different conspiracies and corruptions and things going on. Wouldn't the biggest layer
Yeah.
be the
Yeah.
aliens?
Well, and especially now that that there's so much more openness about it. Like you were talking about Trump talking about it. And I remember to my memory, I think, well, I know that Jimmy Carter talked about it, Reagan talked
Yeah.
about it.
Mhm.
And then
True.
Clinton
Yeah.
was the first one that I remember, at least being younger, that had supposedly like really like pushed
Mhm.
to find
And
out
mhm.
and was just like, no, you can't,
Yeah.
we're not telling you about that. And then, subsequently Hillary talking about how she was going to get to the bottom of it
Yep.
and all of that. And then I remember
Mhm.
Bush, George W. Bush, very tight-lipped.
Yeah.
Just
Joe.
like, yeah, little joke, and then just
What man, I don't want to do a misquote. It was senior or junior? It might have been George Bush Senior, but there may be some quote out there, you guys online, or you may know it, some out there about UFOs from George Bush Senior or Junior. Maybe somebody can do some digging. There might be something out there wasn't so much of a joke comment. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's always often on like the Ellen show or Jimmy
Mhm.
Kimmel or Jay Leno back when he was on, and it's this kind of scripted, let's pretend like we're getting to the bottom of UFOs and that we know the truth, but we're not going to tell you what it is, kind of wink wink thing. You like
Yeah.
it. And so it's a really huge shift to be having UFO videos, have the president be looking at UFO videos and be saying, that's a hell of a video. I wonder if they're real.
Mhm.
Because although in some ways you could say, well, that's hurting disclosure because he's saying these videos may not be real, but that also means they could be real. So when instead of saying, oh, these videos, laughing as if maybe they do exist or not, you at least have a president acknowledging that they exist.
Yeah. And he's
In the
not
first
laughing them off. Right.
So it's a really different shift. And is that a good or bad thing? I don't know. I don't necessarily know that disclosure is a good or bad thing. It's really, I think, how people, you and me, people watching, process that information and how we handle it, whether or not it will be a good or bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's always the possibility that it's not a good thing. Like that that there's bad intentions and that we really don't, it really isn't good for us to know this. I don't know if you've read the book Contact. Obviously there's the movie.
I know it. I know the story and I haven't read the whole book though, but yeah, yes, I
The
know
book
that
is
well.
very good because it talks about, the movie. I like the movie, but
You said Contact, not Communion.
not Communion, no, Contact.
The movie. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there's the movie, but then Carl Sagan wrote a book that the movie's based on, and the book is much more not so much about this like linear. They build the thing, she goes, and does she see the alien or not? It's about what would happen to society if we knew that if there was full disclosure, if they did essentially like in that movie land on the White House lawn. And I still, to me, that's an archaic thought that we wouldn't be able to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, but then there is the possibility that there are literally malevolent beings that are poking around that they really just don't want us to know about because it would cause grave danger or whatever.
Right. I have always, so for me, I'm like you. I'm like, we can handle this. I'm just naturally curious. I just want to know. I can handle it. That's how I feel, right? But like when you go down that path that your fear can take you, right? And because I guess that one of the reasons that people do find it so easy to believe the story of, oh, that is a fake UFO video, is because if you really go down that path, okay, that's an advanced craft of a creature of a humanoid or creature that's more advanced than me, maybe more intelligent than me. They're visiting here and I don't even know it. That's freaking scary.
It is,
and I've seen Independence Day, and so I think what a brain might do in that moment is say, okay, I'm gonna go to this is a hoax, because I'm not prepared to process that, what that could be. And that's my psychological, sitting on an armchair philosopher take on some of this, the psychological effect. And so what I would say to people is that, well, there's a lot of people that aren't so savory. We do some things that aren't so great here on Earth that are scary. It's not illogical to think that other advanced, intelligent life maybe not be the safest either or the coolest either. But there's also really amazing people here on planet Earth that are living nobler lives than you, that you wish that you could be more like. And so that's also pretty logical, that if there are more advanced life, that there's probably a mixture. It's probably not this super evil, super good. And also we've lived with this, if this is real, we've lived with this for a long time. This actually isn't anything new.
Right,
so the only thing that's changing is our awareness. So the only thing that's going to make this scary or bad is how we choose to handle whatever information starts coming down the news. And I do think that whether or not aliens are visiting, I think it's a healthy mental exercise to imagine that they could be visiting and to accept that they could be visiting, because if it's not happening today, it might happen tomorrow, or we might find a planet soon, us. Of some kind of species. And so this is a good exercise. I find if there are viewers that are afraid of the idea of aliens, or maybe you're in this disclosure thing and you're like, wow, this is real. Wait, maybe I don't want this to be real. Like, just know you're made for this. You're designed for this. You're an intelligent creature living on a planet, a spacecraft, like, going around the sun. Like, this is wild and you're meant for it, and it's okay. And there's probably not any scarier than any of the humans here. Like, we're a crazy lot ourselves, so we can handle it.
I think we can totally handle it. I was thinking about, like, since this whole quarantine thing has happened, that obviously there's there's people that are protesting it, and there's all kinds of different opinions, and there's different things that are happening as a result. But my opinion, and maybe it's optimistic, I think we've adapted to it better than I would think. If you told me when I was 10, like, oh my God, when you're, 30 years from now, you're going to experience this. And I'd be like, society's going to die from that. Like, we'll all go crazy. People will be swinging from telephone poles and like climbing trees. And it's, I mean, there's obviously been a lot of craziness and bad has come out of people who are beating themselves up in stores and stuff like that. But I mean, for the most part, I think people have adapted pretty well to it.
Maybe that's why that news story came out when it did, because it the quarantine happened, and that was the talk, was like, how could people handle disclosure? And you'd hear things like this, like what you're saying, and that's how I feel too. But you also heard some of the other things, like, look how people were hoarding toilet paper. What would they do if disclosure happened? That's true too. So also saw that too. So we had all this chatter, and then the Navy videos being released again. And think about, it's been virus nonstop in the news. Was this the first interruption of it? Was it?
I feel like it. I feel like that is true.
Stuff going on in the world. There's got to be. I mean, just because it's quarantine doesn't mean there's not news, not wars, not things still happening in the world. So that, we'll have to see how this plays out. But we've been having this disclosure conversation it's been increasing. I would say definitely this last year, 2019, 2020. And a lot of world events are seeming to align with maybe literally thinking outside of ourselves. We're stuck at home, not with our friends and family, looking up at the sky. So it's disclosure. I think it's coming.
I hope so. And I've always I always make jokes about, like, when people say, like, why don't they just land on the White House lawn? Like, why would they? Like, what does that matter to them? To make a grand entrance and to pick that or whatever, landed,
Yeah, and there is 1952. There is the 1952 Washington UFO.
And there is that.
It is kind of funny. There are those cases where there was some. It's funny. And a lot of people don't know that about those cases. But there's isolated tribes, here on our planet today, that we've had governments make decisions about how to interact or not interact with them. And there have been decisions. I don't know about, I guess today, right now, and today where these tribes are all, but I think there's like some in a tribe in Peru, maybe, where there's been some government laws to essentially try not to contact them too much, let them develop, on their own. So there's been different scenarios like this on our own planet. So why would we expect some advanced alien life form to come and say, hey, we wouldn't even do that. Or let's think, I mean, I'm comparing ourselves to our own fellow humans, but let's say it's a lesser life form, or not lesser, that's so judgmental, less intelligent, aware life form, maybe like an ant or something. How would we show up to an ant? Or would the ants expect us to go talk like an ant and go communicate with them like the ants?
Right, exactly.
It's a whole misunderstanding of what communication would look like from a different life form. Maybe they don't even know what we're saying right now in this Zoom interview. And
that's such a common assumption that, I'm sure that they could communicate with us via their mind or but it's true. It's like, well, how do we know that they like, just because they're so advanced, why does that would mean that they understand what we're saying and what we're doing? It's just like the ant. We're obviously, a billion times more intelligent than an ant, but it doesn't mean that because of that, you can now extrapolate what an ant is thinking.
And intelligence is even relative. I'm always kind of I've got 3 dogs, a cat. I love animals. So I'm always mystified by, nature. And wow. And we're always learning anything. We discover new species all the time. We haven't discovered there's tons of stuff in the ocean. Forget about space that we haven't even discovered yet. So yeah, just again, like do the math. It's there for you for
Yep.
sure.
That's another an example I think of a lot too, that if I talk to people that just aren't into, most of the people I talk to, thankfully, are open-minded about it. But every once in a while, I'll use the example of, and it's pretty basic, but to think, well, when someone starts talking about the laws of physics and how would they breathe, and how would they do this if they live on a planet that doesn't have, and I always think of, well, imagine the first person that saw fish, that saw life from the ocean, that they don't breathe like us, that they don't look at all like us. Like, why would you think that there couldn't be life outside of the Earth that just has no relation to how we function? We always assume that it has to be adhere to our own ideas of what our laws of physics are and what our biology is.
It's a really big assumption.
Huge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
I have to ask you, because you went to the Area 51 base camp.
Yeah.
Right. Was that your first time over there at Area 51?
It was my first time at Area 51. So what a way when they're like welcoming people and everything. So it was amazing. So for folks, if they don't remember, there was the whole Storm Area 51 movement that was on Facebook. That was just, let's face it, it was a little ridiculous. But what happened was, as a result, there was all this interest around Area 51 and this potential storming of it. So there was this event put together, Storm Area 51 Basecamp, that was a peaceful alternative to that, where people could go and safely, there was a whole area where you could get food and drink, and there were me and some other folks, UFO experts and that sort of variety there to talk to people. So it was a blast. And during that time, you were allowed to drive up to the Area 51 gates, take pictures, talk to the military folks who were all into it, and
that's so cool.
Chill, and wanted to talk about UFOs. Everybody was super chill. So if people recall, there were all these worries that this was going to be a dangerous thing and people were literally going to be storming the gates and get arrested and stuff, and nothing like that happened. It just ended up being a really chill time, and it was neat. It was just neat to be out there in the desert, knowing where we were, how close we were to Area 51 and everything. It was a great time, and I hope that maybe every year they'll start doing something, because I hope so. Go back. I'll definitely go back.
I would love to. I'm only like 7 hours from there.
I recommend it.
I'll tell you, I did go there once.
Okay.
It was a friend of mine and I were going to Arizona, but like via Vegas. So we stopped in Vegas for like a couple of nights, and then we were like, let's go to Area 51. And go to it, obviously, but like, drive down the extraterrestrial highway. And so we took off at night, and then I remember there's this really ominous sign that says like no gas for 130 miles or something. So like, all right, we fill up, and it's the dead of night, and it's kind of a rainy night. And we go to the mail, we stopped at the mailbox. Awesome. And then I don't remember if we stopped at the gate, then it started raining, and it was like desert wind rain. So it was
kind of intense.
It was really intense, and it set the mood, but maybe a little too much. And so we got back in the car and we're driving, and now the rain is like, it's like horizontal. It literally is, it's like Star Wars hyperspace, right? Just coming right at us. And these two headlights appear right behind us. No brake lights, no anything, nothing to indicate that a car was coming, just headlights behind us for like 5 minutes. And we're like sweating bullets, and like, just like, why are they doing this? We're driving away. We're not trying to go in. And then the lights stopped. And it was there's too much rain and darkness to see. Oh, they pulled off. I mean, obviously it was some camo dude truck or whatever, and
they'll track you. Like I don't remember what it was, if you know, but there's a certain point where you're basically, I mean, you're under complete surveillance. They know exactly where you are, and
the
so
thing
I
that just
guess they're going back. Let's leave them alone. Let's just make sure they leave.
Just make sure that they're on the course. It just amazed me that they clearly had some sort of like modified vehicle that only had headlights.
Do you know how long ago that was? Or
that was in 2002.
Okay. Yeah.
Or 3. Probably 2002 or 3. But yeah, it was because I mean, we knew obviously it wasn't like some low flying spaceship or anything like that, but we were just like, that car, like they were using they were using night vision or something, because there's no indication of ignition, of braking, of reverse. There was just headlights. 5 minutes, gone.
Wasn't like a Prius, like a quiet hybrid.
I mean, it could have been noisy. It was hard to tell with all the rain.
Yeah.
But then we went to the little alien, and it was great.
Yeah, we had a much, I mean, there were just people around, it was daylight, so we had a much different experience. So it's interesting, I don't know what it's like now if you were to go, because they were so welcoming. What is that like now, today? They're just back to a scary, we're gonna like stalk you and chase you off, or are they
probably
being friendly or so?
I think with something like that, especially because it was so publicized, like it was in their best interest to, let's just be cool about it and not start throwing people against the fence and arresting them and everything.
It'll be cool if they start doing it every year, and one day there's going to be an alien at the gate.
I would definitely be there again. Do you believe? I have to ask you, because I know it's like we've been on an hour, and I thank you so much for doing this. You're so much smarter than that. You're so like in the weeds of it, like the details. I take the general story and I kind of make it into like fun, and here's things that possibly you didn't know if you're not into aliens so much, but you actually do the work and the digging, which is why it's so awesome to talk to you. I have 2 things I have to ask you real quick.
Too much, but yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay, so there's a guy who I've played on my show a bunch of times, who was supposedly and I think Jeremy Corbell worked on this. This is before I didn't know who Jeremy Corbell was until the Bob Lazar movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess before that, he worked on the Truth Embargo movie. Are you familiar with that? The anonymous interview with this CIA guy who's like about to die and he can barely speak. And he's telling Richard Dolan this entire story of how he met Eisenhower and how he went to Area 51. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? This guy?
Yes, but I believe so. There have been a few of those deathbed confessions.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I'm remembering the say, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you had seen that and if you thought that had any credibility, because I've never other than like, if you look up the anonymous interview on YouTube, you can find it, but I've never been able to find any follow-up to it, or exactly how they vetted this guy, or if there was anything that came from him other than his story. Because if you listen to him talk, he seems to have been present for many events of this. But I know that there's been other guys, like Boyd Bushman, I think, was one of the guys who... Yeah,
I was going to try to pull it. Okay, it is the one. Okay, that is, I believe the one I'm remembering is what you're talking about. So yes, if it's the one, it's obviously an older gentleman, bald man, right? Okay. Yes, if it's the one I'm thinking about, you're right. There's just no like content. It's just this video that lives like by itself. I've seen some really lame debunkings of it, just kind of saying this guy isn't telling the truth. It seems so, I just feel it's real. That's a gut instinct based on no investigation whatsoever. I do recall what you're talking about. I just remember being just as struck probably as you. I think I tried to do the digging to authenticate, hit the walls just like you hit. But I will just say that's not the only time, you know,
For
somebody
sure.
has come forward in their later life with those types of tales and things. And maybe it's naive of me, but I don't know what the motivation would be for these older gentlemen often to come forward so later in life to share these types of things and with such sincerity. I'm not a body language expert by any means.
I've never understood.
I'd like to think I can call BS. Maybe, I mean, I know, and Lazar's talked about this, Bob Lazar's talked about this, and some other people who have been given secret intelligence, or so we think. It could be that people are given wrong information, right? So you work for the military and you're given wrong intelligence, right? Incorrect intelligence that then you believe to be as true. So that could definitely muddle some of these confessions. So maybe there are details that were later debunked or found not to be true. Yeah, I wish I had something better for you.
No, I don't know. I don't know if anybody does. Maybe Jeremy does.
Yeah.
I think he was there.
I'll ask.
But
that's great. I'm curious about that. I'll look into that more because maybe, yeah.
It seemed like there's like a trailer for it. I don't know. It's always been a mystery to me. It seems like I don't know this. This is just my theory. Is that it seems like it was that they were making a movie and that this was part of it. And that somehow maybe the wheels fell off with funding, or they just, you know, things happen when you're making movies, especially documentaries, like things just fall apart and you move on to something else. And I think that's possibly what happened with this. But I'm so curious about that guy. I play him on the show all the time because he's just, his stories are crazy.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about him in a while, and it's great. I know I know what you're talking about, and it's super compelling. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up again. I would like to see, if these people are telling the truth, them to be validated. I would like to see more things come out for the sake of their family and friends, you know, that maybe are still living today, and for the sake of their memory. And, you know, who knows what people who have passed or people who have coming out about things now have had to go through. So to me also, I think one of the reasons early on that I did Texas UFO sightings is because, well, it was just simply I was getting reports from witnesses, and I felt like they deserved a voice, and I felt like they deserved to be, you know, heard. And so it wasn't necessarily always about, okay, are aliens visiting, but it's these people are often taking risks to their own careers, to their own anonymity, often wanting to be anonymous because it's not something you come out about. And so that was what motivated me early on. And especially when you talk about, you know, examples like that, where you have these older gentlemen in their later years who've kept this private for so long, sharing this with us. Like, how can I not want to share that with people?
Especially when you look at what happens to someone like Bob Lazar, who comes out when he was like one of his 20s, right? I guess when he first spoke out, and then to see what's happened, you know, how much ridicule he took, and how he just, you know, wanted nothing to do with it, and how you know it took. I know like George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell to get to a lot just to get him to come out and make this movie, and I'm so glad he did, because it's another thing that we were talking about earlier about how much UFO stuff has been happening lately. The fact that he would come back.
It's great timing.
I love it. When I started doing the show, it was like 5 years ago. It was pretty dry on the news front for this kind of stuff. So I was just telling the old stories. And lately,
you're so right. It was just the jokes segments. You know, it was nothing ever serious. And so, you're always just talking about the old cases and stuff going on now, and hey guys, this is going on, but now it's front and center for sure. And so again, it's time for, and again, I know people have maybe different opinions. Maybe you don't believe Bob Lazar is telling the truth. I feel people should have their opinions. This is a confusing world full of a lot of lying and deceit and confusion. So I don't blame anybody for having really skepticism or not having skepticism anyways. It's also a big universe. But this is definitely a time for some minds like Bob Lazar and Commander Fravor and some of these people who have come out on like Joe Rogan and in the news to talk, to have what I would hope a unified front. Hey, we're a bunch of people here saying the same thing. We've, been we've participated in different parts of all of this cover up in a way, or been witness to it, and we all have the same conclusion. I think that
you take someone like Luis Elizondo, like he doesn't. I mean, I know that he wasn't one of the. He obviously wasn't like David Fravor or anything, like was a pilot who saw it, but like he didn't have to come out and say to all the amount of news shows that he did and say, go to the extents that he went to say those things. He easily could have just company line type, we don't exactly know what it is, but stuff like that happens. So
he did a lot of speaking, and I will say that there's things he said early on that a lot of people missed out on, and I think it's important for people to remember, because he said this very, very, very early on and hasn't spoken about it a lot since. And we spoke earlier about his conclusion that these are not man-made. That's key. There's also an important thing where he said early on, when videos are released to the public, they are edited and they are shortened.
Right.
And that videos will not be released unless they are declassified. Now, there's a whole process of declassification. So unless, I know a video is out there, to request it to be declassified, it, may not make it. So there was a lot to the point, too, of there being more videos. So I think Luis Elizondo is probably aware of more than he's even sharing with us.
Yep. That's definitely the impression I get also from him.
So I think what he has to say about this, he might be operating under more information than, he's able to share with us. So he's a good person to listen to. Not we should be skeptical about everything we say. Like he's saying, these videos are being edited, so we're not actually seeing the original uncut footage.
Yep.
So the best source is yourself and what you see in the sky, right? So I mean, with or without Navy videos, people are seeing things all the time. So
and your site is awesome for that. TexasUFOSightings.com, and you don't just do Texas; you have other states on there.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is that I'm in Texas, so I can really get into the nitty gritty of those cases. But cover it all worldwide. Got a bunch of interviews. Got some really cool interviews coming up that will be posted on the channel soon. So try to cover it all. So appreciate.
Thank you so much. This was like an educational. This was like a class for me.
Oh yay! That's awesome.
In UFOs, it was awesome. So thank you so much. Kidding me? No. Okay, absolutely. Good. No, it was enlightening, and I think the audience will love it. Certainly, they've had enough of just me talking about UFOs. So to have someone
really fun. You were really fun to talk to.
Oh, thank you. You were awesome talking.
Being interviewed, chatting about UFO stuff. So it was really fun.
Yeah, I definitely did not want to try and interview. That'd be so weird and just like,
this was fun.
How did you get started on this?
Way more fun than the question.
Yeah, no, just talking UFOs.
Cool.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Jane. And where else? What's your your Twitter and your Instagram?
Yeah. So Instagram, it's people say UFOJane at X, but it's UFOJane TX on Instagram because UFOJane was taken. And
how dare they?
Twitter. Yeah, but I mean, it's all on like the Weird UFO Show or TexasUFOSightings.com. It's all linked everywhere, but I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere.
Awesome. So. Check Jane out. She is doing the Lord's work with all of this stuff, as we just heard. All right. Thanks, Jane. Thanks. This was an education for me and I think all of us. So. Thanks again.
It was really fun. So appreciate it. Hope to do it again.
Absolutely. Anytime. Love to have you. All right. Bye. Once again, that was UFOJane from TexasUFOSightings.com and the Weird UFO Show. Check her out. She's constantly putting up content. She's constantly investigating things. And she is definitely worth following. And so until the next time I see you, cue the hot chick.
Pop Talk and Aliens, the William Clear Podcast.